Hey, good morning, folks. Thanks so much for joining me here on Wave Now. I'm Myra Ansari. We are going live to a press conference. The Jefferson County Commonwealth Attorney, Jarena Weathers, is giving us an update on the progress over the previous years when it comes to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. And they're going to also introduce their new focus areas for the public safety aspect that they're going to drive for 2026. Let's listen in to this press conference.
In office, there's about 100 of us here, and there are a total of 57 Commonwealth attorneys throughout the state. So there's about, give or take, about 126 counties. And of all of those counties, as you know, the great Jefferson County is the largest. And then from there, you have Fayette County, you've got Northern Kentucky, and you have Bowling Green. I share that with you because there's over 780,000 people here in Jefferson County. And this office is the one that's supposed to make sure that we protect them as it relates to the felonies throughout this state. And our office operates on three things. I shared that with you as I came in here, that we changed some things around. We operate on integrity, compassion, and accountability in all that we do. And we're responsible for making determinations based on the interests of justice. So we have the law, we have the responsibility of making sure that we execute the law, and that we make sure that from that law and from these cases, we are protecting the community and our victims. Reminder of the mission statement: to fulfill its dedication to the public safety and the fair pursuit of justice. Our office aggressively prosecutes guilty of felony, major, and violent crimes and protects the innocent, in line with promoting ethical practices, safeguarding the rule of law, fostering community confidence, and protecting the rights of all parties involved. The office is an advocator. We are advocates for the victims of crime and affords all persons with respect, dignity, and due process. So our vision is our office makes determinations about any case under our review based on the evidence that's given to us. So I do want to give a shout out to our law enforcement. We will talk about that very briefly later, but it's our responsibility to work with law enforcement on the local, state, and federal level. They are the ones that investigate these cases. And from those cases, we receive the information and then we move forward. But everything is based on what we call now, it's a thesis of our office called GRACE. That is the focus framework of all of our novel initiatives and our program developments throughout the office. GRACE stands for G for gun violence. We'll go over a little bit more detail. AR is for road safety. A is for the abuse of drugs. And then our key initiatives are C for community and collaboration, and E for education. So let's go ahead and talk about a little bit about what 2025 and what my great office did. There's 100 of us. There's only 44 of us that are attorneys and prosecutors. And then we have our wind beneath our wings. We've got our detectives. We have our victim advocates. We have our paralegals and our staff. They're the ones that actually reach out to our victims, make sure that they're doing okay, then make sure that we get them placed where they need to. If they're not from the city, they work with them through the entire process if there is a case here in this office. And then our paralegals work with us on the legal aspect of it. In 2025, we convicted about 2,300 defendants that were convicted. It was a little bit about 100 more than 2024. So give and take, we also have the grand jury. Total, we indicted approximately 2,800 cases. That's just for the year of 2025. And we actually went up a little bit on our trials. So that means that if we cannot negotiate and mediate and take care of our cases with our defense bar, we go to trial. We average about one trial a week. So that's about 36 to 38 trials a year. And just so you know, in circuit court, we only make up of 25% of these cases. So criminal court and criminal cases, we only, believe it or not, we only make up about, give or take, about 25% of the cases that go on in circuit court. But now we're averaging about a trial a week. So we close, give or take, about a half of those cases each year, because we want to have movement. We have a lot of questions about that why are there certain cases that are 2-3 years old? It just happens. There are a lot of times that we're still investigating. There are a lot of times that we have to deal with other issues. But ultimately, we want to move the cases because we want to make sure that our community and our victims are able to start anew. And it's hard. It's tough when they continue to have cases that they're waiting for us to be able to negotiate. And I am very partial about our office. Our office is very sincere. We work very hard. I'll be honest with you, I have been a prosecutor before, and I'm back here now. I was in Frankfurt. This is one of the best groups that I've ever worked with. And they do what we need to do. So back to Grace, when we talk about gun safety, we are involved in the firearm convictions. We also work with our LMP, with local law enforcement. We work with federal law enforcement, especially with felony repeat offenders. We're still working on those programs and making sure that everybody is involved, which means that we just don't have a recycle of people that have been charged with firearm cases, that we really are highlighting those cases and taking care of those. In 2024, we had 520 cases that were indicted involving a firearm. That's nearly 20% of our cases. Now in 2025, we have about 400, give or take about 500 cases that are also indicted involving a firearm. And roadway safety, as many of you know, we created a new division, a group of one of our best prosecutors to deal with roadway safety. The reason for that is that in 2023, we received a new statute, a new law that dealt with that actually regarding vehicular homicide that's added to, and much needed. It's a tool in our toolbox that we can use when things occur. So that group is a wonderful group. They have talked to many, I don't know if you've heard of Vision Zero, they're nationally known. We have Louisville Vision Zero here. They gave a comprehensive presentation to Vision Zero, and they are there, that agency is there to work on highlighting the number of people that we lose on the roadways. I will share with you as we go through here some specific cases so you all can see what we've done. Commonwealth v. Bradley Caraway, the 5 years on reckless homicide. We have the Commonwealth versus Lazario, 30 years for murder, assault 1, wanton, DUI. We have Commonwealth v. Faith Turner, and these are just a few. 32 years on manslaughter 1, manslaughter 2, wanton, criminal mischief, DUI. We also have Commonwealth v. Alexandra Tillo, 23 years on murder is what they've received. Assault 2, wanton 1, wanton 2, DUI. This one particularly was upsetting, but he was going 110 miles per hour on a crash, and that happened on Southern Parkway. Commonwealth v. Michael Hurley. He received 70 years for murder. Assault 1, assault 2, DUI. This is the one that we had worked with, all hands on deck with this family, where he hit the basketball player, Ava Jones, and her family. We still have worked with them in the past, and most recently. Commonwealth v. Chad Erdley, 20 years on man 2, assault 2, and wanton 1, and DUI. That's where multiple pedestrians were actually struck right here on 3rd Street. So that gives you some idea of what was going on, and thank goodness for our FAST team. And they work on that in addition to the other cases that they work with. On our abuse and drugs and narcotics, we have a new NARC unit. We used to have a NARC unit way back when, brought it back when I got here. The reason for that is that, as many of you know, that drugs kind of permeate through everything that we do, especially our cases. It also gives us an opportunity to collaborate on the federal level. You know that we have, I work collaboratively with the Attorney General's office. We always have. There's prosecutors now downstairs, one of the first of its kind in the state and in the nation, where we have prosecutors from the Attorney General's office that do special cases for us because of the number of cases that we have, and they've done a great job. But the collaboration helps us as well when we talk about these NARC cases. We continue to work with our new U.S. Attorney's Office. We work with him quite a bit. They also have a new first assistant that I've worked with in the past, Brian Butler. That office works very well with us. We're glad that they're there because we just try to figure out what's going to be the best road and best pathway with some of these cases. Sometimes it's good to keep them here, right here and locally. And then there are other times when they're so egregious, and then there are other things that has happened outside of our state that we deal with our Fed partners. We have one with Ronye Albright. Cornelson pled guilty to the max on trafficking in a controlled substance, and that was with meth. He was facing 10 years, and he's going to be sentenced in March. Then there's Commonwealth, there's county, our community in collaboration. I've said this over and over again. We have a job to do here on the felony level when we deal with these cases. And I have also said that once these cases get to us, That's why I say we've got the county attorney's office, then we've got the Commonwealth Attorney's office. Once these cases hit this threshold, we are here to prosecute the cases. I don't care what color the defendant is. I don't care what age they are. We have a responsibility to make sure that our community is safe. And with that being said, that we also want to be part of the community. It gives us an opportunity to bridge that gap. We want to be out in the community. There might have been a defendant who has a younger brother or a younger sister that we can still get out to. So those collaborations are intentional. I've done collaborative efforts in the past, and you cannot run an agency without it. It's important that we work with our partners. So we have town halls. Last year we had town halls at the Western Library with AARP, with Councilman Morgan McGarvey, Councilman Herndon. We also was out with Shively, with their city council members, with their police chief. Their fire department was actually there, Councilwoman Parrish White. And then we also have our collaboration with Indiana called KIPA. There's two gentlemen that I work with very closely, other Commonwealth attorneys, and they're in Floyd and Clark, and it's called the Kentucky-Indiana Prosecutor Alliance. Last year it's important that we have those connections because crimes don't happen just here. They happen right across the bridge over and over again. So that partnership is very important. And we also in 2025 assisted in serving subpoenas on witnesses that were called to testify in the most recent trial in Indiana with the 2024 Harvest Homecoming shooting. That's one of the reasons why the collaborations help and work the way they do. And then we also had a new PSA. I call it a new PSA, do you know where your children are? I say that it's revitalized and reignited. That is an old 1960 PSA that was out there, started in New York, and it's all over. And it gives community leaders an opportunity to work and have a PSA about where are your children at 9 o'clock? Where are your children at 10 o'clock? I do want to thank the media, actually, because they're the ones that actually gave us the opportunity to put this together and use one of the recording studios. So an extra thanks to Jefferson County Attorney Michael Connell, who was also part of the PSA, Louisville Metro Police Chief Paul Humphrey, Jefferson County Sheriff David James, and then 2X Game Changer Executive Director, who I've worked in the past, Christopher 2X. So we appreciate that we also are dealing with our children. You've heard that over and over again. We're doing everything that we can here when it comes to the courtroom, but we also want to remind the community what we're doing and how that looks. And then I also shared with you before that we had asked for the legislators to start looking at parental responsibility. We just have to see. It's a long session this year, as you know. We do know that there's some language out there, and talk with the legislators, and we'll see what happens. Any tool in our toolbox to make sure that we do what we need to do is greatly appreciated. The organized retail theft is actually through the Attorney General's office. But there's a collaboration there. We were invited on that task force along with the mayor, the Kentucky Retail Federation, Representative Ballman, St. Matthews Police. And they are all part of this press conference that we did not too long ago, but we have met in the past about what retail theft looks like. A lot of people have their own ways of what it looks like, but what's happening is that it attacks our seniors, especially with scams. It attacks a lot of people in our community. So that's also something that we collaborated with. We just did a recent podcast with Dr. Swanee Jett, just sharing what we do in this office. And we also are a new member of the new Community Safety Commission that was created by the mayor's office. As far as educating the law, we had our first ever victim advocates video that was put together. It's not just with our victim advocates, but also with the threshold of our victim advocates of LMPD. It's a very, very short video, but it's gained a lot of track with it because it actually shares with you exactly what happens in the courtroom. Many people have not been in the courtroom like we have, and we want to make sure that we do that. We also have a collaboration with the new superintendent, JCPS. As you know, that there's a lot of people that we know out there. JCPS Police Department is there, but I also have met several times with the superintendent. I go to a lot of the schools. We visited Schaffner Traditional. We visited Central High School quite a bit. We visited in other high schools and part of that. Our statistics numbers I've shared with you that we represent about 25% of those cases. Some of the key trials before I end. Tim McCreary was rape, sodomy, incest, guilty on all charges, sentenced to 30 years. We also had an Antoine Roach on murder and robbery. Jury recommended 80 years or sentenced to life. That was the 2023 Algonquin Park murder and car theft. Milan Harris, that was the Smoketown double murder. It was murder with life without parole, minimum 25 years, jury recommendation, so we'll see. I'm going to move down a little bit more. Kayshawn Stewart, that was where they fatally shot a construction worker, attempted to kill a LMPD officer. It was murder, assault 1, jury recommended life, 2 consecutive sentence to concurrent in life. This is what we've been doing. This is just 2025. Christopher Thomas, I'm sure that we will talk about that later. Timothy Wright with life recommended by jury, sentenced to life. That was a Cody case, and they entered, that was one of our criminal facilitation and robbery pleas, because we also have a violent crime unit that deals mostly with a lot of our violent crimes, but a lot with our robberies. So for 2026, you'll see us continue to push our GRACE initiative. We will also have a new website. I want it to be a little bit more user-friendly, and it will give an added lens to the public so they can see what we do. We also have the legislative push that we're doing. We will also be embracing our human trafficking initiatives. So some things that I've worked with in the past, and then when we bring this here, we had one of our prosecutors that actually spoke at a international coalition, not too long ago, on the Human Trafficking Prevention Summit with the First Lady. And we are engaging with seniors. We're looking at some novel ways. We won't share everything right now, but we want to make sure that we are working with other organizations as it relates to our seniors. And we want to go beyond just seeing seniors as vulnerable adults. So we're focusing on that. We're also going to be focusing on the community as it relates to some of our faith-based initiatives. We're steadfast with our schools. We've had a lot of presentations. I just presented not too long ago in Georgia with the rest of the, I'm called a Commonwealth Attorney, but the rest of the DAs all over the U.S. on learning opportunities about what we do, how we do it, creative ways, and when we're in the courtroom and beyond. We also had a multi-agency presentation where we presented to all the Commonwealth attorneys in the state, and that was specific for our presentation with LMPD, the U.S. Attorney's Office, ATF, and the Kentucky Attorney General's Office, which was it was one of the first of its kind when we did that. More intentional about making sure that our community knows what's fully going on. That's one of the biggest ones. As we step into 2026, we're going to do everything that we can to be as transparent as we can in this office, and also what we do in the courtroom. Sometimes it's very difficult to explain. Sometimes you see the very end of it. Sometimes media share what sentencing is, but we also want you to know what we're doing every day in the courtroom. Some people may agree with it, some people may not. We're not going to get it right all the time, but I think it's important that you know that we are working every day to make sure that we are keeping this community safe. Everyone in the community is looking for certain things and certain lenses. I want to remind everyone that we only look through 3, and that's what this means for the community, what this means for victims, and what this means for justice. And we are not here to do anything other than that. When we're in the courtroom, we're in the courtroom to prosecute. When we are in the community, we are there to be able to put bridges together and be able to talk as one. So that is it. I hope that helps a little bit about what we did in 25 and what we're going to do to come. And then I will take any questions that you may have.
Dorena, in the case of Christopher Thompson, if you read the comments on social media, if you listen to the talk shows, people are angry about what has happened. What can your office do moving forward to ensure that judges in this town are following jury's recommendations and following your all's recommendations in sentencing defendants defendants of violent crimes?
What we can do is what we've always done, is to make sure, I just talked with our division chiefs about it. Our responsibility is to make sure that we don't falter and that we prosecute cases. And I will share with you this. You didn't ask this, but I'm going to share with you anyway. I went into the law for many reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is that the law permeates through our lives. And whether you like it or not, we've got to have some type of ability to be able to take care of our community, but also prosecute cases that we need to prosecute. That's what the law is for. In this particular case, I'll share with you, you saw my statement. My big thing is that we are here to prosecute cases. When we make offers and they don't work out, we move forward to a trial. And then when we move forward to a trial, it comes to the jury. The jury determines, based on the evidence that they've seen, based on what has been said with witnesses, they determine, based on what we give them, what that sentence should be. And many times that recommendation, to me, is what we should follow. That's why we go to trial. A trial is a jury made up of their peers in the community. And that's what this was particularly. Because of the outburst that was happening with the defendant, because of things that happened. Let me tell you, he yelled and screamed at our prosecutor in front of the jury. These are things that was taken all under consideration when that sentence came down. And the biggest part of this is that we need to follow. I always say that we don't want jurors to feel like that they're just somebody that comes for the heck of it. They're here for a reason. And we wanted them to be there so and the biggest part of this, I keep hearing, I'm not crazy, believe it or not, I'm not crazy about social media. So I don't look at it a lot. I know a lot about it. I have to because of the job I have. But one thing that we miss and that we forget about is the victim. There was a real victim in this case. She will never be the same because of the hands of the defendant. That's why we hear when we prosecute cases. And I want to make sure that people understand that. I understand that there may be other factors that you have to look at. I get all of that. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, she will never be the same. Her family will never be the same. Nothing will be the same in her life, and she didn't do anything wrong. So that is why we took her to trial. One of our best prosecutors that we have. She heads up the violent crime unit. And I want to say it again. You all elected me for a reason. And we have a responsibility to the community. I'm not here to talk about anything other than that. I'm here to talk about what happens with other folk, what they've done. But when we feel that something has gone awry because of the sentencing, we have to make sure that we let the community know. And that's what happened here. We wanted the sentence that came down from the jury.
There are calls for more accountability of the judges. What can your office do in that effort, if anything at all?
We can. I will share with you that I'm very steadfast in saying we just need to be steadfast. We need to continue to do what we do in this office and don't back down. If that's why we are trained to make sure that we do what we need to do in the office and in the courtrooms and beyond the courtrooms. So when we're in the courtrooms, we have to make sure that we hold the defendant accountable, keep our victims safe. And then we do that by applying the law. That's why I love the law so much. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but that's why we have the law. So then our responsibility is to execute the law and then apply it to people that have never been in the courtroom, maybe with the jury. That is what our responsibility is. And we have to make sure that we're transparent. Let our office be transparent. We want you to know what we're doing. We will make it as plain as we possibly can. And then the other things, we want to make sure that we stay in our lane as prosecutors. And I'm going to share with you, as far as the judges, we're going to continue to do our work and what we need to do to protect our victim.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you feel like, this isn't the first case in the last half a year that has come under fire because of a decision that a judge has made in this county about what a defendant should receive that was different than what a jury thought they should receive? Mm-hmm. Do you feel like these decisions made by these judges recently is undermining the work your prosecutors do every day?
That's a good question. I'm going to share with you that there are going to be times when this office is going to disagree with decisions that happen in the courtroom. That's how I'm going to say that. And what our responsibility is that we cannot back down. We cannot, we're here every day for a reason. And we want to make sure that we do our job. We want to make sure that people hold us accountable. And we're not going to always get it right. But I shared before that the judge has discretion. They have discretion on sentencing. But what our responsibility is that if we have put everything in front of a jury and that we believe based on the evidence that we need to move forward in trial, that's why we're there, then we are going to move forcefully to make sure that the sentencing that happens with the jury is carried out. And this is for this particular case. So I don't want to talk about any other. I'm talking about this particular case with this particular victim, with this particular defendant. And it was important that I shared that we've done what you all have asked us to do. And ultimately, when it comes to the defendant, once they hit the threshold in our courtroom and in circuit court and what we do, we are going to prosecute fully. And that's what we did.
The mayor's office and LMPD have frequently spoken about the need for judges to keep dangerous people behind bars.
Mm-hmm.
What has been your observation? Have you noticed a response to that continued point of view?
I'm not sure if I have or not. I'm not going to say one way or the other. I'll tell you that we have, close to 5,000 cases, and it is daily. I always call it daily grace, but it's daily that we have to remind one another in this office why we're here. And so, people don't see in the courtroom that we have hearings, we have preliminary hearings, we have hearings when, we have a policy now that if a defendant has committed a crime and they pled guilty before, now they have a new one. If they still have some time over their heads, we want to have a hearing about making sure that we can pull that time back so they can serve it too. Those are things that we have to do. And a lot of times, there are times when there's a disagreement in that we come in but that is the lay of the land when you talk about the courtroom. Everything's not black and white, because there's many times you all have shared with us and shared with me, like, did you really need to do that? But these are decisions that we have to make, and we do the best that we possibly can. I'm just not here to disparage anyone. I'm here to make sure that we are all held accountable. Anyone else?
When it comes to juvenile crime, toward the end of last year, you sent a list of cases very helpfully to a lot of people in the media so we could take a look at where some of those cases stand, what types of cases you guys are dealing with. That's obviously a huge issue in our community.
Yes.
Teens and young adults involved in gangs and violent crime, and involved in a lot of the murders and non-fatal shootings.
Yes.
Looking ahead to 2026, is that still a top priority for your office?
Our youth is always going to be a top priority in both instances, in the courtroom and beyond the courtroom. That's something we just can't get away from. It is an anomaly. It used to be an anomaly, but all over the country, you have youth that are committing crimes that are just heinous, anything that I've not seen. And so we have to make sure that we connect with juvenile court. There's a lot of things going on there now, and we connect with our county attorney's office. And so we still have a prosecutor, one specific prosecutor, usually in our violent crimes unit, that works with the juvenile prosecutor at the county attorney's office. And many of you may not know, we don't have a jurisdiction to just go into juvenile court and say, this is what we want. So we have to work through the county attorney's office. So it's a little bit different. And we gave you numbers. I don't have numbers today, but it's still a very small portion of our cases. But as you could see, 20% of our cases involve a firearm. Many people probably think of the 5,000 cases, they're all like that. So it's just a few that's like wreaking havoc. And I am very serious about doing the dual roles, being in the courtroom. And this has got to be a push for all of us, for the community leaders and community members, the churches, schools. And we're all doing great things individually, but we've got to be able to collaborate to deal. There's some organizations and agencies that deal directly with these youth. I mean, directly. And there's got to be a way for our agency to be able to work with them for at least for twofold. One, to hope that they don't cross that dangerous threshold. But if they do, the community knows who we are. The community knows what we're going to do. And it has not gotten any better. I mean, I know we have some numbers out there that the shootings have gone down, but the issue is still the issue. There's still community members. The community is wanting answers, and we're doing the best that we possibly can. As you can see, we close out a half of our cases, we pick up the other half, and we continue on from year to year. I don't know if that's going to change. We are hoping that in the next couple of years that we will see a difference based on what we're doing, and we are going to have some statistics for ourselves internally to see what this looks like. So,
Do you think your prosecution of juveniles is a deterrent, or do the kids not care about that?
I do not believe the prosecution of the youth is a deterrent. I do not. And I say that because, and this is just coming from me, you have youth whose, brains are not fully developed, front hard, you've got literally, we could have 14-year-olds that are committing crimes and we're going to prosecute them, but I'm not quite sure if it stops the others. I think that it's important that the community understands what we will do. And we still have to educate the jurors when it comes to, believe it or not, our numbers show that we have to really educate the jurors as to why we are prosecuting kids. So it's just not the youth, it's educating our jurors. How important it is that, it's tough for others. It's not tough for me, but it's unfortunate that we have young people so young that we have to prosecute. But I shared this before. I talked with a young man that was part of one of the gangs, and I told him, I want everything to work out for you. I really do. And I believe that. But I also believe that if you're going to represent the death of 4 or 5 others, then I need for you to be off the streets, and I'll do whatever I need to do that. So I'm not sure if it's a deterrent. I think that's a good question. I do believe that we deal with our youth a tad bit differently than our adults. Our adults, we prosecute for deterrence reasons. I mean, we want to keep people in and make sure that we're sharing the message that we are serious, but it's different when we're dealing with kids. That's why you have to get everybody involved. You have to get parents involved. You've got to get caretakers involved with children, healthcare providers. A big part, we haven't talked about that because we're not going to talk about it in 26, but mental health is a big issue, and how we approach that and how we approach it in our office and how we approach it with our jurors.
Safe to say that's where you can see the biggest improvement from a prosecutorial standpoint, is making sure that all the different pieces of that network are coming together to understand what your office is going to do and what you guys need help with from the community standpoint.
That is correct. And yes, thank you for that. The big part is that you need to know what we're doing and what we're doing out in the community. For instance, there is a criminal justice commission that's been around way before I was here. It was here, I want to say, with Abramson back in the day. We now have this criminal justice commission that we're community members and leaders, and we come and we meet either quarterly or once a month. But it's underneath that criminal justice commission that you have 22 subcommittees. Well, we're part of almost half of them, the agency is. So instead of just going to the meetings, what can we do with that? We've got the jail policy committee. They deal specifically with what's going on in the jails, where there's overcrowding, mental health treatment is being delivered. And believe it or not, the chairs of that committee is myself and my friend, Amy Hanna, who is over the Department of Public Advocacy. And when I got here, I really believe it's an opportunity for us to be able to do things together, and that's what we're doing now. I'll put together a task force. You'll hear about that some other time. But it also gives us an opportunity for the community members who's part of that jail policy committee to understand what we're doing, especially when it comes to youth, because we talked about that. We talked about the issues with the youth. We're still waiting on the detention centers. There are other things that we have to look at when we start talking about just prosecution. It's not that, it's also community and collaboration and education.
Earlier, you mentioned parental responsibility and working with the legislature. What would you like to see in that front?
I would love to see, talking about parental responsibility legislation, I would like for us to see a beginning of that, just something that's in the books, in the statutes that we could use, or in the law that we can use. It may not even start with us, with circuit court. It may be district court, family court, because I've talked to a lot of people about that, when you have truancy in one court, and then you've got juvenile court, and then you have a juvenile that commits a crime of murder, and it's this court, then when do we talk about a family unit? And I truly believe that there is, whatever that might look like, there is a unit that should be protecting our children. And the way that we do that is that we need to start calling people on it. We've got some DA offices that started it that way, that they started very small as far as parental responsibility. It kind of started with, if a kid goes out and graffiti and messes up the side of a wall, then now we're going to hold the parent accountable for that. Let's start somewhere in order for us to say, it's not just the child. If we're going to prosecute 14-year-olds, there's something amiss here, and somebody should be at the table. And I have said it over and over again. What I don't want to see is a law that weaponizes the community. We don't want that. We want a law to be able to get to the parents that have completely detached. They have completely divorced themselves from their kids. Or what we have seen is that you actually are part of this crime-ridden craziness that we see with the youth. It's not just him or her. It could be a parent or a caregiver that's part of that. Well, we don't have necessarily anything like that to deal with. Now, we do have, which is a big one for us, a big one, unlawful transaction with a minor. That means that it's so general that we're able to look at the fact scenario to find out, can we use this one? And then it would help tremendously. So we haven't seen anything yet, but I will say that we just appreciate the legislature for listening to the Commonwealth Attorneys Association. I will say that over and over again, that they are, they're filtering through that. We've talked with them. And we also want to just make sure that we take care of our victims. I can't say this enough. When we talk about our youth, I've said it again, I've said that before. We're dealing with something that we might not have seen before, but we need to start somewhere. And we need to make sure that our victims are being protected.
In the same vein of wanting the legislature to put something on the books that empowers you all to hold parents accountable, would you like to see something in the same vein for tightening the window when it comes to sentencing recommendations to avoid a polarization situation like we have so far?
I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I will say that because I've been there, every case is different as it relates to sentencing, charges, whether or not the defendant has pled guilty. And I don't know if necessarily that process is broken. I just want to make sure that we still have the opportunity to meet with our defense bar and to present hearings when we want to have hearings in front of a judge, that we're not just talking about this main case and the sentencing. We're also talking about that they've been here before, those types of things. And I'm just in my second year, I believe. I think I've been here a little bit over 2 years, but I'm only my second year administration. And that is one big part that we want to make sure is that we educate ourselves, make sure that they know, when I say they, the folk in the courtrooms know what we are doing. I think that's policies came from a military family, so policies are very, very important to make sure that they know what our expectations are as well.
The vehicular safety focus with the attorney's office. You mentioned Vision Zero and working with them. I know they're doing a lot of outreach on street safety and even getting grant funding to improve traffic calming measures here in Louisville. I guess outside of the courtroom, how might your office kind of join in that outreach to the public on vehicular safety?
Talking about outreach on vehicle safety, that's one of the reasons why we created our team. We call it the FAST team, Fatal Accident Safety Team, but that's why we created the team, to not only we earmark the cases that we have. So as these cases come through, we have people that are responsible for certain cases. And then those folk can also divvy out with those cases, depending on what they are, they go to certain prosecutors. And with that one, it's just with them. The other part of that is that Vision Zero is it's a big agency that works throughout the US. And the more that we educate to share what we have learned also. When I went to Vision Zero a couple of years ago, I learned a lot, that some questions that they had that I never even considered when people are part of, what happens in, with vehicle homicide. But, we have our local legislatures that deal with the flock cameras, and so does LMPD. There are some things now that we're doing that we haven't done in the past, that the more equipment that we have and things like that. But again, it's collaboration and education to let them know that we will connect in any way possible. That's how the vehicular homicide statute came about. A lot of times what happens is that you have a law, you have a statute that we prosecute, but it's not necessarily, if it's a DUI, I don't want to get into details, but if it's a DUI, that's not necessarily, it's about the mind, that this person go out to try and kill somebody. Well, the reckless homicide just puts all of that together to allow us to move forward. So it's a little bit of both. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, thanks so much for staying with me here on this stream. That was Commonwealth Attorney Jarena Weathers talking about things that her office is doing to ensure public safety. Wave News reporter David Mattingly is on this story for us. And if you've been following the news, you may have seen one of our recent troubleshooter investigations where a judge reduced the sentence for a man who was convicted. And that has drawn a lot of criticism from several city leaders. He was convicted of a rape of a woman. And so we got to follow up on this story coming up again tonight, because it's generated a lot of interest and a lot of concern from community members. All right, folks, thanks so much for staying with me here on this stream. And I will see you later here on Wave News. Have a great day.